Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are exploring a real kind of unsung hero of the human body, the kidneys. These little fist-sized organs work absolutely tirelessly to filter our blood, balance our electrolytes, and produce some incredibly vital hormones. But what happens when this masterful system begins to silently and progressively fail? It's a completely fascinating, though, pretty sobering process. What exactly happens to the human body when its master filtration system slowly and irreversibly breaks down? Well, in today's explainer, we're going to take a chronological journey through this exact scenario, mapping out the microscopic destruction and the massive systemic fallout that comes with it. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a very clear 5-step path today. 1. Defining CKD. 2. Staging with KDIGO. 3. Common causes. 4. Pathogenesis. And 5. Systemic complications. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, defining chronic kidney disease, establishing our medical baseline. So, the crucial point right out of the gate is how we actually measure this decline, because chronic kidney disease isn't just a vague feeling of being unwell, right? It's defined by very specific metrics. The primary marker we look at is the glomerular filtration rate, or GFR. If a patient's GFR drops below 60 milliliters per minute and, this is critical, stays there for 3 months or more, they have CKD. That 3-month timeline is the strict medical baseline that proves, unequivocally, that this is a sustained, long-term issue. Now, to really put that 3-month timeline into perspective, we have to contrast CKD with acute kidney injury, or AKI. AKI is abrupt. We're talking maybe a sudden infection, massive blood loss, or a highly toxic drug. It happens in a matter of hours or days, and fortunately, it's often reversible. Chronic kidney disease, on the flip side, is a long-standing, irreversible process. Once those nephrons, which are the tiny filtering units inside the organ, are destroyed over months and years, they just do not come back. Moving right along to Section 2, staging with KDIGO. This is how we map the decline. So the internationally recognized KDIGO guidelines, and that stands for Kidney Disease Improving Global Outcomes, by the way, give us this incredibly fascinating look at the gradual loss of function. Notice how patients start at stage G1 with a normal GFR of 90 or above. And here's the wild part. Because our kidneys actually have a massive amount of reserve capacity, early stages like G1 and G2 are usually completely asymptomatic. A patient literally wouldn't even know they're sick. But as we move down into G3 and G4, the filter is seriously clogging up. By the time a patient hits stage G5, full-blown kidney failure, their GFR is below 15. At that point, the natural organ has essentially given out, and the patient almost always requires dialysis just to survive. And this brilliantly illustrates that the real-world prognosis isn't just about a dropping GFR alone, it's actually a compounding effect. Notice the albuminuria categories across the top there? That's protein actively leaking into the urine. As the filtration rate drops and the physical damage allows more and more protein to spill out, the danger of adverse outcomes just multiplies, rapidly pushing patients into those highly critical red zones. Which brings us to Section 3, common causes, getting down to the root etiologies. The thing is, kidneys rarely just fail entirely on their own. They're usually the victims of broader systemic issues. Here are the leading culprits. We see genetic conditions like autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease, where expanding cysts literally crush the kidney from the inside out. We also see immune-related issues like glomerulonephritis. But check out the top 2 on this list, diabetic nephropathy and hypertension. These are systemic metabolic diseases, and they are, without a doubt, the absolute dominant instigators globally. When you actually isolate the data, it is abundantly clear that diabetes and hypertension account for the vast majority of the CKD burden around the world. Because these two conditions are so common, they are silently, day by day, damaging the incredibly fragile microblood vessels inside millions of people's kidneys. Let's move to Section 4, pathogenesis, basically the microscopic failure itself. This breakdown happens in a surprisingly predictable and honestly tragic sequence. First up, there's the initiating insult. Let's say it's a chronic spike in blood pressure. Some of the tiny filtering units, the nephrons, are killed off. Now, think of it exactly like a factory. If a quarter of your workers suddenly quit, the remaining workers have to do massive overtime just to keep production up, right? Well, that's step 2, compensatory hyperfiltration. The remaining nephrons work much harder. As a result, they actually physically grow larger in step 3, which we call maladaptive hypertrophy. But come on, they can't keep that frantic pace up forever. Eventually, they burn out, turn into scar tissue, which is called sclerosis, and they die. Which, of course, just forces the even smaller pool of surviving nephrons to work even harder, creating this vicious, practically unstoppable cycle. Now, what's really interesting about this is just how physically destructive that biological overtime really is. Compare the normal glomerulus on the left with a hyperfiltration state on the right. Vasoactive hormones, like angiotensin II, cause the exit pipe, the efferent arteriole, to tightly constrict. This creates a massive traffic jam of blood, drastically jacking up the pressure inside the glomerulus. You can literally see the structural distortion there. This intense intraglomerular pressure stretches the cells, rips apart the filtration barrier, allows toxic proteins to leak right through, and ultimately triggers the scarring that destroys the nephron for good. And finally, Section 5, systemic complications, the massive systemic fallout. This total systemic collapse we're talking about, that is called uremic syndrome. And it is absolutely vital to understand that end-stage renal disease, or ESRD, isn't just an inability to make urine. No, it is a complete and total collapse of the human body's chemical balance. Nitrogenous wastes that are supposed to be flushed down the toilet are instead endlessly circulating through the bloodstream, acting as severe, potent toxins to literally every other organ in the body. The toxic ripple effect here is just massive. Let's logically group this fallout, shall we? In the cardiovascular system, fluid overload and toxins lead straight to heart failure and severe inflammation of the heart sac. Down in the skeletal system, the kidneys stop activating vitamin D and they stop clearing out phosphorus, which leads to horrible bone disease and even calcified blood vessels. Neurologically, uremic toxins straight up attack the brain and nerves, causing deep confusion, twitching, and restless legs. Even the gut takes a hit, resulting in extreme nausea and dangerous gastrointestinal bleeding. Let's actually pull out one specific, super fascinating example from that list, the blood. Patients with advanced CKD almost always deal with severe anemia. So the crucial point here is that this anemia isn't just because the patient isn't eating enough iron-rich foods. The kidney actually acts as its own endocrine gland. It produces a hormone called erythropoietin, which essentially tells the bone marrow to make red blood cells. When the kidney dies, that vital hormone signal stops entirely. The factory gets zero orders and the patient's blood counts just absolutely plummet. But, hands down, the absolute most dangerous complication of all this is cardiovascular disease. Get this, a patient with chronic kidney disease faces a staggering 16-fold increased incidence of cardiovascular disease compared to a healthy individual. It's really not the kidney failure itself that usually claims a patient's life. It's the resulting heart attacks, the heart failure, and sudden cardiac death brought on by living in this highly toxic, chronically inflammatory environment. Which pretty perfectly summarizes our main takeaway from today's explainer, taken straight from the medical literature. The pathophysiology of the uremic syndrome involves more than renal excretory failure. A host of metabolic and endocrine functions are also impaired. The kidney isn't just a basic filter. It's a brilliantly complex, multitasking organ. It cleans, yes, but it also balances, it signals, and it regulates everything. Which, of course, leaves us with a pretty massive, high-stakes question. Knowing the severe systemic devastation caused by end-stage renal disease, how exactly do modern replacement therapies step in to perform the literally impossible task of replacing a human organ? I mean, how does a dialysis machine clear these invisible toxins out of the blood, and what are the actual realities of getting a kidney transplant? Well, that is a wildly fascinating topic for another time. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the amazing science of the human body. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.